Hey folks, my name is Suds.
And I'm Nikki. Welcome to Zero Calorie Marketing.
Tune in to listen to us speaking to some of the most innovative, brilliant, open-minded marketers we know.
Each episode features a different marketeer with a unique perspective on marketing, branding, life philosophy, and everything in between.
Lend us your eyes and ears for the next hour or so as we discover more about the person and also the unique path that they took which led them to where they got to.
And the real story behind the why, where, when, and how they do what they do.
Without a further ado, let's get to it. Hey everyone, welcome to season 2, episode 1. We are joined by the lovely co-host Nikki and our guests Amanda and Callum, who are freshly co-founders of Makers Care. So why don't you guys give us a quick rundown of what you do and how you got to know each other, just a bit of information about yourself.
Cool. So Amanda and I met each other whilst working at a different agency. Must be sort of 4 or 5 years ago. And so when we were there, we didn't really work very closely with each other, but we were always sort of aware of what each other was doing. I think at the time, Amanda was working on a lot of sort of brand and campaign strategy stuff, which is what she's incredible at. And I was working on a new sort of digital product at the agency at the time. So that was good fun using my sort of like web background and design background to sort of try and make that happen. So that was great. At that time, we sort of had an opportunity to set up a different agency with those guys, and that was great. Had a really good sort of little run at it. And kind of fast forward a little bit to the beginning of this year, and obviously the incredible year we've had of 2020, and just all the drama that's sort of gone along with that. Amanda and I sort of made the decision to Makers Care as a new entity and sort of position it in a way that we thought was right for not only ourselves and sort of the kind of values that we have as individuals, but also recognizing that there's with hindsight, it's a great thing, but we sort of saw what was happening in the market a little bit about, is not too different from a recession when everyone kind of gets a bit antsy and, it's easy to lose your way in those moments. So it was really important for us to sort of start a new company that had kind of care at the real heart of it, hence the name, but also, really skill up and give or skill our clients up to a point where they can actually flourish in this sort of time and keep an eye on what really matters rather than things that don't matter and getting unnecessarily stressed by numbers and figures and just having a bit of a holistic view on it, shall we say. So it's been really good, and sort of to date, we've gone from strength to strength from the moment we started, really. Had some awesome clients come on board that it's been an absolute pleasure to work with. And I don't say that just for the sake of saying it. It really has been incredible clients we've been working with. And like every day, the kind of proposition gets bigger and better, and the team gets stronger, and I feel like we've just really built something that is ready for scale now. And it's only been a short while, but it really feels like it's at that point where it's sort of do or die, which is awesome.
Good. I mean, one side note I was going to mention was the lovely co-host Nikki and I, we actually met through you guys. So you're responsible for this connection. And
it's called ecosystem.
Yeah,
love that.
I want to really go deep dive into what Makers Care is about. And, I know that you have your philosophy of how you want to run the company and who you want to work for and that kind of thing. But, when Nikki and I spoke the other day, and, it's like we both knew Amanda separately from different parts of her life, I guess, when Nikki was working with Amanda for her first early business. And I met Amanda through a panel that we did together. But it's almost like the first time Nikki and I met, it was almost like, someone I trust and really, really value and really love was like, hey, this is a friend of mine. And it was like, we just had that instant connection. And I had this kind of feeling that we'd end up doing something, even though I didn't know what that was. So that's how this whole kind of thing came about. So through that kind of relationship, maybe, Nikki could tell us, what was it like working with these guys? When you, I know it was a short time when you did that.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I wondered if Callum's or summation of the first time he met me was similar to Suds's, because I was so lovely. So worked with Amanda in the past. So while I was still at university and she was, starting her entrepreneurial journey. And it's been amazing to see, where you've come and how you've grown and been able to adapt to the market. And last year had the opportunity to jump back in on her partnership with Callum, which is Flamingo Punk, which was already great, I think about 6-7 months. And we did some really cool stuff. It was really interesting to work with them because I think even in a short space of time, it was, you know, I was giving so much opportunity to try different things. So a lot of trust put in me, which is amazing because boy, but we did some really cool work together. And I think, you know, that work has also driven what I'm doing now and it's really helped me grow and develop and work with other brands. I think my question for you guys is, so what's Make Us Care like? What's been, you know, the last few months of Make Us Care? What's it been like to, you know, start all over again?
Big question. I like it. What has it been like? To be honest, we just haven't stopped. It's been exciting. It's been really exciting. I think it's just awesome to start from scratch and just to build stuff. And it's something that I personally absolutely love, is just building things from scratch and making things. And I think that's the beauty of starting again, is like, cool, you've got this blank sheet of paper. Cool, what do we want to create here? What do we want to make? Like, what are the foundations that's going to actually sustain this business and help us create the right energy around it, which is going to help us, you know, attract and find the best people and share the same values that we share. And I think this year has just been an incredible year. And I'll tell you what, it's been probably one of the best years of my professional career. And that's because it's just, I'm personally just so much more clear about the kind of business I want to build with Callum. And of course, like, that's only come from all the experiences of the businesses that I've personally started and built in the past and failed miserably and learned loads and all of that stuff, which is awesome. Yeah, I think this year is it's just great just to take all of those learnings and kind of, you know, unpack it all and be like, okay, this was great over here and this was great, and actually don't want to work with people like this, and don't want to, you know, just sort of having that list of what do we want out of this business and what don't we want, and just being really clear about that. So for me, it's definitely been the year of clarity in my personal and professional life. And I think Callum and I have just, you know, just even in terms of the way we work together, and Callum, let me know, I know we're on the same page with this, but I think even the way we work together is just, it's just like, it's not hard. It just flows. It just goes, and it's just really nice. It's like, we know how to work with each other. We know, you know, I know what he's amazing at, and it's completely the opposite to what I'm amazing at, which is great because, you know, when you're in a partnership, you have to be really clear about those kind of things, and you just have to know that, you know, literally to the bare bones of it. You need to be so clear about, you know, what everyone brings to the table and what your strengths and weaknesses are. Part of me is like, has it been hard? Because starting a business, you know, everyone's like, it's so hard and you've got to work 24 hours and all this kind of stuff. You don't stop, but actually you don't have to do that. You really don't. As long as you're really clear about what you're building, you don't have to work crazy hours. You don't have to skip meals. You don't have to stare at your screen without taking a break. You don't have to do all of that. That's ridiculous. You don't. You just have to be clear about who you are, what you stand for, and what you're building. And that's it. So it's been great. That's like a very long, big answer to your question, but yeah.
I mean, my follow-up question, and I know I can grill you on this, Amanda, because we've had this conversation so many times. You know, how did you decide between the two of you? I know the answer, but I think this is worth exploring in a forum like this. How did you decide you and Callum complemented each other? Because you know, when you were with your old agency, when I used to know you both independently, it was like, okay, your specialities are something and Callum's speciality is something else. How did you decide that you would be a good fit for each other?
Yeah, go on, Cal. I've been talking most.
Yeah, I guess as I said at the beginning, you know, we sort of worked with each other, but not. So we worked around each other, but not necessarily directly with each other. And so obviously, if you're in an working environment where you're working with a sort of a specific team, you know those people really well. If you're in a design team, for example, and you're all designers, then you know, that's obvious. So I guess it was a bit of luck involved in there. Obviously, the people that are around us put us together because we had, you know, that sort of end, without being too much jargon, end-to-end sort of agency in a way, in that, you know, Amanda's got an incredible ability to develop and work on brand and campaign strategies, you know, which is obviously very important for brand and campaigns. And then where I'm able to come in is, you know, although I spoke about web design and development, you know, I've worked across all the kind of creative outputs of an agency, you know, whether that's organizing photo shoots or designing or doing logos and branding or copywriting, all that stuff. I had a real passion for the way that sort of stuff works. So when you kind of smash those two things together, it kind of, I mean, if you're asking for a light bulb moment, I don't know if there necessarily was one. One thing I would say is that, and a reason that this year's felt professionally very good for us is that, I don't know how long it's been now, but at least 2.5 years, well, about 2.5 years, Amanda and I have spent a lot of time working on our professional relationship. We've got an incredible mentor, Mark, who has helped us do that. But what it's meant is that we've just created incredible way of communicating with each other. There's no bullshit, but we don't fall out. And that's kind of the thing, is that you see, and you see it in a lot of founders. You hear the stories of founders. There's 3 founders, and then one day one of them decides, oh, fuck this, I'm leaving. 9 times out of 10, it's because they're not communicating properly. And you hear stuff like, oh, people think, oh, someone's putting in too much more weight than the other. And the problem is that you don't have an understanding or an appreciation for each other's skills. So therefore you make assumptions, and it all gets all mixed up in your head. And then the output of that is, oh, fuck this, I'm just going to walk away. I can't be bothered with it. So, yes, there's a skill set thing that's being invaluable to us, being able to start small and keep our costs low to actually set up the agency from day one and immediately be able to generate some income, which, is a business. That's the whole point of it. But regardless of that, even if we did have the exact same skill set, I think, for any founder, regardless of what sector you work in, regardless of what, if you're an agency or your product or whatever, the key thing is just having and working on your relationship. It's like marriage counseling. And it doesn't matter if it's 2 girls, a guy and a girl, or 2 guys, or more than 2 people, or just one person. You need to work on yourself as well and understanding yourself. But it really is that. And that's more important than the business, I would say, because the success of a business is a result of you working on that stuff. If you don't get on, you can't communicate, you fall out about everything, you've got polarized values or even just slightly different values, you're not even going to get out of the start gate. It's just not going to happen. You might have the next Facebook or next LinkedIn or whatever idea, the most world-changing idea, but if you can't work with your founder, it's never going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
I think there's a thing in tech where they say a great team with a bad product can still make something, whereas a great product with a bad team would fuck things up no matter what.
100% agree.
Very true. And to build on sort of what Callum's saying as well, I think one thing that really has helped us is getting a mentor, having a business mentor, someone who, and sort of carving out that time. So it is time for you to be together and just talk and get things out, even if it is like little frustrations or little niggly things, just get it out. Because I think also to sort of, build on what Callum was saying as well. If you don't get on, or you don't respect each other's skill sets, and you're not on the same page with stuff, it just sits there. That those feelings and those emotions just sit there, and they got to go somewhere at some point. It's just important to communicate. Yeah, it is important to communicate. But I think for us, what really helped was getting a mentor very early on. And this was right at the beginning of Flamingo Punk, when we first it was like making a band. We were kind of like put together and it's like, yeah, cool, go and start this business and go and run it and build this company. And we kind of were like, huh? What? Well, where the fuck are we going? We have no idea what we're doing. But we went for it and we did it. And it was really great. 2 years of sort of building that last business, which was awesome, which is where we brought Nikki into that as well. Yeah, working with Mark has just really, I call him business dad. He's like our dad. In business, and it's great. Which is like, hey, business dad, hey dad, and it's really great because he just sort of chairs these conversations between Callum and I. Without him, I don't think our relationship would be as strong, because we just know how to work together. We know how to communicate. If I piss Callum off, he'll tell me. If he pisses me off, I'll tell him. We're just so real and honest with each other and open, and that's the way it's got to be in business, not just with your team and your co-founder, but with everybody who's on the boat with you. That's how you build a sustainable business. And it's really cool when it all kind of works and it all kind of falls into place, and it just feels so good. There's no weight, there's no bullshit, there's nothing kind of weighing you down. It just feels quite light and freeing, which is, from my point of view, the way business should be. Who wants to live and run a company and feel like shit every morning and feel like there's just so much to do, and the weight of their plate is just like dragging them down? No, life's too short. Life's too short.
I want to go back to this because, and Nikki will probably have a feed on something to say in this as well. So obviously, you guys are heavily, like from the first few moments I met all of you guys, this big emphasis on relationship. And I think Callum mentioned something quite interesting. It's like this kind of marriage in a way where you do sometimes end up working with your colleagues and seeing them a lot more than you would your partner, and you have differences. And other podcasts may actually let this slide, but I want to go into this. So Tell us about your first real heated argument. How did you get over that? Because it's something, I mean, I know Amanda.
It's quite a hurdle to cross, isn't it? That the first one. Because if you can cross that, I think you can you think, okay, we have something working here.
And how did you know, you could just say, this is a headache, or, I don't need this, and you could walk off. How did you deal with that? And how did it come about? If you can get into more details.
Yeah, as a bloke, I'm struggling to remember the argument, but I think and my fiance would probably agree with that statement. We never have arguments. What are you talking about? Yeah, so genuinely can't remember like a big bust up or anything like that. But again, without trying to go over old ground, the thing that we've learned is the quicker you nip things in the bud and you create space to allow each other to nip things in the bud. Because at the end of the day, this is, the baby we're looking after is the business. If mum and dad are fighting, for you want of a better term, it's not going to be happy. And there's responsibilities you have that you can't, like employees and suppliers that you can't, and clients that you can't drop the ball. So in all honesty, like there's definitely been frustrations on both sides for Amanda and I, where we feel, oh God, like I went through a phase of not really acknowledging that I had a calendar, for example. Oh, you put it in my calendar. Oh, okay. Right. I'm pretty sure that was quite annoying, but now I'm hot on my calendar and actually I'm chasing Amanda up on bits. So it's like, it just swings around. The point is that there's no resentment, I think, is what creates a huge amount of problems. Or I can see how it, even in our business, could create a huge amount of problems, because as soon as you start resenting something, you then don't see the value in it. And then you start thinking, you go down this real tricky path of, oh shit, what's going to happen now? So I can't think of one in particular. Amanda, I'm sorry.
Amanda, can you
bust up? Let's get the band back together.
In all honesty, I'm really trying to think as well, and also just trying to sort of think back to Flamingo Punk days. And I don't think we've ever had a bust up. I don't think we've ever had an argument where it's been like a quite heated argument or anything like that. We've never argued. We've had disagreements, definitely. And there's been times where we haven't been on the same page. And actually the time that really comes to mind, to be honest, is, do you remember when I don't think we spoke for a couple of days, and I can tell when me and Callum, when there's something wrong, when we're out of sync and when we're not aligned, hear it in our voices, and we both know it because we both feel it, and you can hear it. We both, I don't know if I'm pretty sure you must do, because I definitely noticed it, where it's like we're quite snappy, short, and just be like, yeah, okay, yeah, I've got to go. Da, da, da. And you can just tell by the tone and the language that's used, right? But I remember Callum just picking up the phone one day and calling me a couple of days where we just hadn't really spoken, and I was doing my shit, he was doing his shit. We're kind of like four months into building Makers Care and getting everything off the ground. And yeah, it gets a bit overwhelming, of course it does. And he just rang me up and he was like, we just need to talk. We need to talk more. We both need to make an effort to just talk more. And I really respect Callum for doing that, because we both know we do. We both know it works. We both know that when we talk every single day, and we talk sometimes we talk, God, every hour. We're calling each other, because we're also buzzing. We're also buzzing by where we are at the moment with the business, which is amazing. So we're excited to talk to each other. But yeah, at that point, at that moment, we were just kind of in our own worlds. And I think that's also, I'm sure so many companies are going through that at the moment, so many founders and team members, because everything's all changed. We're not in London. We don't see each other physically. Everything's all online now. We've built Makers Care like this. We used to run workshops and all that kind of stuff in person. I think it's just very different when you're all online all the time. It's easy to ignore people. It's easy just to be offline and, and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, the point is talking and communicating, and talking every single day is, again, another thing that can really strengthen the relationship. And it is literally just, there's not been any big arguments or bust ups, but in the past, looking back, there's times where we've both been on slightly different pages and we haven't communicated our feelings and been really honest about how we're feeling as much as we probably should have been, which has caused a bit of tension, but that was easily nipped in the bud when one of us have pulled each other up on it. And one of us always does, always. So, and I think that's just something that we learned.
I think from a casual observer position, and having known all of you for a while, I think it comes from you have a lot of respect for each other, in terms of you respect the other person's idea and how they came to that. So, we've all fallen out with people who had kind of professional disagreements to the point where you just aren't able to salvage that relationship. Whereas I think with you guys, knowing both of you, and maybe this is why you work so well together, is just you have a lot of respect for each other's skills and opinions, and you, even if you may disagree temporarily, you may not, it's not like the kind of finality in terms of, okay, this is it, I'll never work with you again. I think it's that kind of thing. Well, maybe Nikki could give us some inside gossips on what it was like when you actually all worked together.
Yeah.
No, actually, I think one thing that was great, sort of, and this is obviously not because they're here, but one thing that was great about sort of seeing or listening to the way Amanda and Callum work is they both understand that the other person has a different set of skills or has different skill sets, and sort of like this skill set complements what I have. So even if we have tensions in this moment, I understand that this person, or I understand that Callum needs to have space for his thought process to come together so that we can get to the end goal, but also knowing that both sides are always going to deliver. Unfortunately, it's not always going to be on the time frame that you'd like it to come, but that person's going to deliver to standard. And I think it's sort of really interesting to watch that, because it's trusting in the skill set your partner has and respecting it, but also knowing that they're going to come through for you. So yeah, that space of trust in working relationships, I think, is quite important. And I think what Callum and Amanda do well is be a great example of that in working relationships. And I have a question for you guys. So you've had the opportunity to start a business, not 2020, and you've now had the opportunity to start a business in 2020. Now, a big thing everyone said is, we're missing physical, being in the same physical space to do work. But is there something, you've really appreciated about being able to build a business, in a space like this? And is there something you miss about, beyond, physical space, you miss about being able to build a business in a non-2020 world?
What I'm so grateful for is being able to have dinner with Ryan on my behalf. I'm really grateful for that. I'm really grateful for being able to, enjoy beautiful Wokingham and go for a walk in the, down some nice little country roads and feed the ducks and things like that. So I'm really grateful to have flexibility in my day now. I think building a business, what I think is amazing is like building a business digitally. God, I can't get my words out today. Through video and Zoom and all that kind of stuff. We can always go back to, people facing. I think it's harder for people to go from building a business like in the sort of old world, I guess, to something like this. And it is to start here and then, go back into, doing it the way we were doing it before. What do I miss? I miss people. I miss human interaction. I think everyone does. I think I just miss going to events and networking in person, because it doesn't matter how many events you go to on Zoom. I'm not going to lie, Zoom just tires me out. Like it's really exhausting to keep your engagement up and keep your energy up through a video like this, because I don't know, there must be science behind it. Like it is quite exhausting just staring at that little green light. I really do miss just being around people, going to events, talking, going up to people and going, hey, I'm pitching, and sharing, what we're all about and our story and hearing their stories. And yeah, I really miss that. But yeah, really appreciate having more space and flexibility in my day to just do things that feel good for me, and just, have dinner at a normal time, cook. Oh, even though I'm not that great, just, to be able to have the choice to cook and not be rushing home and like bursting for a pee the moment I get to the door because I couldn't go to the toilet on the trolley because it was blocked or smelly, like just things like that. So,
a little
Callum?
Yeah. So when we started Make Us Care, we had a really good bit of advice, or a little insight, I guess, very early on, which was, I'm probably not going to quote it properly, but it was along the lines of, if you can build and sustain and grow a business through a recession or a time like this, then, what can you do when you've got the wind in your sails sort of thing, and you don't have that? And so I agree with that statement. We're yet to see what that means really in the reality, but I guess I'm glad, again, I don't want to say that what's happened this year from a society point of view, I'm glad about, obviously I'm not, but it's given us a great excuse to think about the way we work differently. It's allowed us, I think, to, we're a startup. Otherwise, we would have had an office in London, or we'd have a WeWork membership, or, all that sort of stuff. And I'm always the person that comes, well, not always, but I'm frequently the person that comes to the table with costs and budgets and all of that sort of stuff. And, it's been really hard for us to have justified an office, but the public perception might have been that we had to have an office from the get-go. So yeah, I wouldn't change it. If I was starting a business again, I wouldn't do it differently. in terms of physical space and stuff like that. We did meet up a couple of times during that kind of period of not lockdown, whatever that's called.
If you have a name for it, please share.
Yeah, whatever that's called.
Yeah.
And I do miss the buzz of London. But what I would say is that when I very first started working in London, or any big city or any new job, really, you have that buzz and that excitement. Because I come in from Tunbridge Wells into London, so into London Bridge, and you come past Canary Wharf is on your right, and it's magical. Like, as a business person, okay, it's banking and it's not exactly agency land or anything like that, but there's something about it that you just feel like, wow, everything's happening here. I got that when I very first started working in London. Over the 5 or 6 years or whatever it had been, that just had worn off. And actually I was thinking, why am I getting out of bed to travel an hour and a half or 2 hours door to door to then sit in an office to have a few conversations with people and then get on a train and go back and then get up again the same morning? And like Amanda says, you're getting in really late. You don't see your partner. You don't have a healthy lifestyle. You've got no time to take walks or anything like that, or go to the gym or anything like that. But what was nice about those days, the last few times we've been in, was I got that buzz again. I felt, wow, like I'm coming in and I'm going to do business. Like, at the end of the day, yes, we love creativity. And the reason we're here is because we love doing, all the things that go on in an agency. But at heart, like Amanda touched on earlier, we love building stuff. We like creating. And that's why we like agency stuff, because we get to create stuff for companies all the time. But when it's your own thing, really your own thing, you just get a bit more of that excitement again. It just feels fresh and new and exciting, and it's brilliant. So I look forward to going back into London a bit more frequently and that, but I don't think I really want to ever go in every day unless I absolutely have to. There certainly have to be some parameters around it if I was to kind of readjust into that world again. Does that answer your question?
Yes, very well. I think everyone sort of has thought about working differently in future. And we know that we can do it differently. I don't think there's really much excuse in future about how, we commit to working and going into offices, which is amazing because it saves so much money also.
I think I've been 50% more productive having worked from home. I've never slept more. I've probably never done more work. I've never felt as fresh at the end of the day than I felt over the last 6 months. And I don't think that's just because it's a new company. I think that's because of the lifestyle change that's just occurred.
Wait, okay, I'll agree with you on this more. Because, when I used to come and visit you guys in London Bridge, it's almost like everyone in the office was from somewhere. So Amanda's obviously from Reading, Wokingham, you from Kent. And I think the other guys were from Bristol, or they wouldn't come into London almost every week. And Nikki's in leafy Hertfordshire, together with her huge parks and probably a few horses that she owns.
I love this vision of my life. I feel like by the end of this podcast, everyone's going to think I'm this like fancy person, and it's such a lie. Please.
Amanda's been to her place, so she can spill it. What I want to say, look, you know what? I'm actually in the office, and I have had the opposite to you guys. I think it's, and we end up speaking to each other almost in a weekly or bi-weekly catch up. By the way, Amanda's big on voice notes. So anyone who knows Amanda, she sends voice notes. To be honest with you, Amanda, one day you sent me a voice note which is 10 minutes long. 10 minutes long, guys.
Most of it's umming and ahhing.
No, to be honest, I wanted to say this to you actually, because when I received it, I thought, what the hell is this? But then it took me a long time to understand what the value of that, and because, and also what you guys do, it kind of comes back to what Make Us Care is about, which is you're able to express yourself in ways that conveys your emotion, how you're feeling, and it really humanizes the way you talk to another person in ways that text and email just isn't able to do so. And I've started sending voice notes to almost everyone I know. And and that was because of your
10-minute voice note.
Yeah, it was like, okay, at first I thought, okay, but then I kind of really understood the value of it, because it was like, okay, so this is what she's about, so this is what Make Us Care is about. So it's kind of fits in to that. And going back to the office thing, we're in an office, we are socially distant here. We don't come in if there's even a hint or a kind of a sign that we may have caught something. So my colleague is actually waiting for his test result as we speak, so he's not in the office, just because we want to be safe. I got myself tested a couple of weeks ago, and I'll probably go back again just to be on the safe side. We have this kind of bubble, but we've had this the other experience where being at home has been really unproductive for me, just because, I have a setup at home, computer, dual screen and everything. I have a small office as well, but I just wasn't able to step my game up, which I know that I'm capable of. And in a way, like, it could have been the novelty of being away from the office for 6 months and being, we signed a lease for this place recently, and it was just like I did 3 days worth of work in a day, and it could have just been because I was, it's a change of scene and all that. But it just, we found it, the opposite, where being in the office really helped us actually, really get our shit together. Whereas at home, I think I just wasn't, wired up to do that. Having said that, I didn't have the commute because, I'm in London, so, I didn't have that kind of issue. So yeah, going back, you are one of the few agencies and, businesses I know that have actually started during this time. You as business co-founders, what would you have done differently if it wasn't for what happened this year?
Well, what I would say, and just to contextualize, I guess, what the last bit I was saying is, when we started the business, we probably spent about a month solid on Zoom, like no joke, all day, pretty much every day, talking about not necessarily doing things, but just talking and getting everything out. The other side of that would have been, we'd met up every day in an office or a coffee shop and done the exact same thing. The circumstances that were around, though, was where you would normally, during a normal meeting, you would have kind of gone out and you might have been distracted and you might have gone and done a few things or something like that. Like, there was nothing to do. Like, the only thing we could do other than watch telly and watch like the new series on Netflix was build our business. And we kind of needed each other to do that. And because we started over video, I think that just laid the foundation. And the reason I say that, Suds, is because I don't think that's necessarily a reflection on you, for example, as your way of working necessarily, or your team. I think this is the point, is as a business, you create a culture and a way of working, and that becomes your foundations. And our foundations just started at a time where we had no other option to do this. Likewise, we've seen a lot of businesses, some of our clients included, where they've had to go from being in the office every day to all working online. And it's been an absolute nightmare that, they're still kind of not got it. They're still trying to figure out how all of this works because they've got hundreds of employees and no one knows how to do it. Normally they just pick up the phone or they shout across the office or whatever. And the motivations to do work and the inspiration to do work come from different places. I'm not saying we've got the golden goose or anything and the ways of working, because we don't. And it's all still to be proven. We're sort of, we're 5 people at the moment. It's not exactly a huge business in terms of manpower on a full-time basis. And I don't know what that's going to look like as we, bring on more people and stuff like that. I saw a diagram on LinkedIn, I think it was this morning or yesterday or something. It had like number of people in the company as points on like a triangle and stuff like that. And then it had a line to each of the people and it showed the different lines of communication and actually how these things can. In an office, that's all right, because you can go, you're right, you're right, Dave, what are you doing? Oh, you're right, Nikki, what are you doing? What's Suds? You can just shout across the office. But if you're just you in your little bubble at home, you can't do that, and that becomes slightly interesting. So we just have to wait and see. And we've had lots of conversations around how we overcome that in the future, and it will no doubt incorporate some sort of physical space. But just being conscious and thinking about what that physical space could look like and do, rather than just diving into what we would have traditionally done, I think is going to be a smart way of doing it for everyone involved, because everyone's, especially, and as you know, a lot of people in the creative industry, there's loads of freelancers. We work loads of freelancers. Working with the lady in Israel, lady in Portugal, got people all over the country we're working with. They don't want to commute to London. Why would they want to do that? So we're kind of lucky there in our industry that we've got the ability to, remote working isn't becoming an inherent part of the way we do business. It's just that core team, I guess, that core operational team. How does that work?
Tell us about what Make Us Care.
So Make Us Care, the best way for me to describe it is we are a bunch of storytellers, entrepreneurs, brand builders, creatives. Like, we're all creative and we're all joined together by this sort of one purpose, I guess, which is to build brands the world needs, build brands that we believe people should care about. And what that really means is, for us as marketeers, I think, and creatives, we have a really incredible gift, and we have the ability to influence and influence the messages and the stories and the things people see on their news feeds. And at the moment, if you go on Instagram or something like that, it's like you're bombarded by like 5,000 bloody messages all the time, every day. We haven't got much time and attention in this world, neither of us, any one of us. And, being bombarded by all of these messages that are mainly for the business, for them to, make sales, which, I get that. But for us, like what we really love and what we think is amazing and brilliant is that we can influence that. We can go and find these incredible, up and coming businesses that are doing great things in the world, doing things to make a difference, a positive difference in the world. For us, that's amazing. If we can work with loads of them and help them tell their stories in the best possible way through 5 stories, which is our framework that we've created and built and developed over the years. And it's something that we believe is businesses need to nail is their 5 stories and really communicate them in a clear and consistent way across all of their different touch points to really connect with people, to really show that they care as a business. And for us, that's our power, that's our gift, is to go and find all these incredible businesses that we believe need to exist in this world because they're doing something positive for it, and help them, elevate them so people see and hear them more. And that's what we do at Make Us Care. And we pull in the right people for the right brief and the right projects. We have, like Callum said, we have incredible creatives all over the world. We want to diversify our creative talent portfolio, I guess, and just really kind of grow our business and just do incredible things with great people who we share the same values with. Like that's us, and that's what gets us out of bed in the morning, and that's what really excites us.
Wow. One thing I wanted to explore a bit more, and people can go and find out from your website. Could you tell us a bit more about the importance of storytelling, especially in the age that we live in? What inspired you to, how did you first discover the importance of storytelling?
Storytelling as a thing isn't new by any manner of means. From cave paintings back in the day, through to right now, J.K. Rowling writing Harry Potter or whoever. Storytelling as a concept, shall we say, within branding advertising has over the last few years has become a bit of a buzzword. But even within branding and advertising, it's not a new thing. It's just people have kind of dissected it a little bit more than it ever has been before, and started refining some of the techniques and methodologies around kind of being able to, as Amanda says, clearly and consistently sort of talk about yourself is essentially what storytelling is. And that's what it's a bit of a cliche within our industry, I think, because a lot of advertising brands and advertising companies, rather branding companies, they talk about storytelling, but I don't know how many of them really understand what it means. And that's where it becomes a little bit of a shame that storytelling's got to that point in terms of a buzzword. The role, and this is actually quite new thinking that we've come across through someone we work with recently, who's doing an incredible creative writing degree and is actually doing a PhD in creative writing shortly. And he's identified a really interesting an actual structure that's within all stories, and it's this idea of containment, right? So as Amanda said, you see 5,000 messages every day. Well, it's like that's just on a big conveyor belt, right? All of these messages just go past you over and over and over again. And the failure that a lot of these have is that they're unable to stop and contain someone's emotions in a moment and actually process them and play them back to them. Wow. If you're able to do that, that's where you're then able to make, as Amanda says, positively influence somebody into taking action and doing something. So we talk about storytelling, and that's almost the kind of method. And we've got our 5 stories, which helps break down all of that and allow people to actually start from a place of nothing to actually having something to communicate. But what we're really doing is we're taking people's emotions, containing them in a moment. And often that's through advertising, a brand video, a website experience, or, experiential experience or whatever. And we're then allowing them to sort of discover what those emotions are, so they can then make a choice in that moment. So there's loads of stuff going on around storytelling and all this stuff. All I would urge people to do is really sit down and ask themselves, what does it mean? And what does it mean to me? Because it might mean a story, it might be Harry Potter, or it might mean this is the purpose of my brand. Like it's such a broad term. It does need defining it in the context in which it's given. That would be my answer.
Yeah, and to build on that, I guess, a little bit, I think for us and the way we sort of see it is we are all stories. Like Studs is a story, Nikki's a story, I'm a story, Callum's a story. Stories make us who we are, and the same for businesses. Stories make businesses who they are. The stories that they tell, create an identity for them. It's how they show up, it's how they appear, it's how they communicate, it's the language they use, the tone, the personality, it's all of that. That's what story is. And like Callum was saying, a great story holds people. It draws them in, it holds them, and then it lets them go, and it lets them think about that story in their own sort of way. It holds people. Great stories hold people. Great campaigns hold people. Connect with them, flare up different emotions in people, and that's the beauty of storytelling, and that's why it's so important for companies to nail it. The framework that we've created helps them nail the best ones, the most critical ones that they need to be telling, which is going to build their brand and help them show up in the best possible way out there.
I think we'll have your details. So this isn't a complete advertising for your company.
No, not at all.
I want to drill down on this. So what's the first thing you do when someone engages you? Could you tell us like a really practical way that you guys, work?
Well, what I would say before we get into the actual work side of it, what we do, and I say this without any bullshit, is we make sure we like the person. Like, we make sure that we like the client. Like, yes, we're here to make money and we will make them money, but if we're not going to get on, it's not going to go anywhere. So we do take that very, very seriously. If there's someone that doesn't align with us and we don't feel that their values align with us, then that is step one.
Yeah. Wait. So, okay, I have this is something me and Amanda spoke about a lot. You could say the people who deserve your help are the ones who are maybe unlikable.
Yes, arguably. Yeah. So there's certainly that within the business. And you're 100% right. That's the biggest opportunity for most creative businesses, are the ones that look absolute shit. The companies that, are the best in terms of revenue because they need the most amount of work. But on a founder level, on a kind of you as a human being, if you've got a great idea and everything else is rubbish, and you've got a great set of values as a human being, and you're trying to, with all your heart, trying to do something interesting and different and all that sort of stuff for the right reasons, then that's step one. If it's, I don't want to insult anyone, but I'm setting up X business that's been done 1,000 times, and I'm doing it because I want to build it for 5 years and then I want to sell it. Yes, you probably will do that. Good on you. I'm not knocking you for wanting to make money and do that. That's absolutely not a problem for me. But for where we want to kind of add our time and invest our time, if you like, and work with the sort of people and companies you want to work with is, as a founder, do you get it? Are you doing this purposefully? I don't want to be too kumbaya about this too much around the campfire, but you just got to be a nice person. One of our clients summed it up perfectly. He's like, we don't work with dickheads, and that's why we worked with Nikki, because she's a lovely person. But,
thank you, Callum.
Let's save it there. It's true. Like, it was kind of, he said it, I was like, yeah, that's right. I don't want to work with dickheads. And there's a lot of dickheads out there. So you got to be careful, get your radar out. But anyway, that's step one. Step two is, we're not trying to sell our services on this podcast at all, really. But step one is 5 stories. So we developed a framework, we've developed a methodology, and we take people on that journey. And that's about understanding, them as a business, them as where they want to be, where they are, the relationships they have with their customers. We speak to customers, get that real insight from people. You wouldn't believe the amount of companies that make assumptions on behalf of their customers, and they're completely wrong. Sometimes they're lucky and they're not, but it doesn't take a lot to speak to 10 customers and get a really, really great understanding of your entire market. That's all it takes. It's actually proven that you don't need to speak to many more people than that to have almost a complete understanding of your entire audience. That's not to say that you might have different sectors within your kind of customer base, so you might want to talk to more people than that, but get a great understanding from very few people. We then often do a small amount of competitor analysis, and this is all coming from a branding point of view. This is trying to understand, where do you sit in the market and where's the sort of white space opportunity for you as a brand in the way that you talk and the way that you look. And once we kind of have all that information, we turn it into your brand stories. And for a lot of people that are kind of very, very new to 5 stories, what that looks like is, a lot of people are familiar with sort of like a brand guidelines for logos and your look and feel of your brand. 5 stories in many ways is your brand guidelines for your sort of positioning and your messaging. So it really becomes that central point that you are always going back to, no matter if you're doing a job spec, writing your website copy, doing a campaign, doing a massive piece of graffiti, whatever. What you're always doing is you're coming back to your 5 stories, because if you do that, you're clear and you're consistent across everything you do. And that's what it brings. It just brings this. It means you can just scale quickly. You don't have to think, oh God, what are we going to put on social media this week? Well, what is our 5 stories? What do we believe in as a brand? Right, okay, well, let's start with that and, find the story from there. So that's the 5 stories bit. What happens after that is execution and activation. So, we work on a lot of campaigns. We do social media, organic social media, and sort of community building. We do, websites and all those kind of agency services, really kind of format that. But everything is implemented from a position of 5 stories, not, hi, I'm Callum, I run a full service agency. That's not who we are. We offer all services, but what we actually do is we implement 5 stories across your business.
So it's almost like a 360 degree look at something. So you're not just taking one approach to say, okay, this is going to be the silver bullet. You're looking at it from a holistic perspective.
Yeah. So just to give an example of where that starts to live in the ecosystem of a brand is, okay, we've defined your stories. Right, well, you need to do an app design. Oh, fucking hell, what's that got to do with it? Well, let's look back at your 5 stories. What does an app design look like in the context of your brand? What does a recruitment campaign look like? What does a single page job application or job spec look like? These are the real important touch points. If you're putting out a job ad and you're trying to build your team, you're trying to scale and scale and scale, and you've got investors breathing down your neck to do so, and you're not hiring the people with the same values and the same understanding of the brand as you do, well, you're off to a full start straight away, because you're hiring people for the sake of plugging a hole, not consciously filling that gap with what needs to be there, which is a new bit of wood in your boat. Well, the metaphors are killing me.
You had something to say.
I think what's really interesting about the 5 stories framework, having obviously been on the internal side of it, is seeing how you've both worked on it and developed it. When you approach businesses, from the angle of the 5 stories framework, I'm sure there are people that go, I'm not really sure, but let's give it a try. So what are common reasons businesses might say, I don't know if this is for me, and what usually turns the corner for them after they've gone through sort of the framework with you? Yeah,
it's a really great question. So I'll jump in, Amanda, just because I've got experiences of this. First of all, that's not a problem. Like, people invest in their brand before they come and see us. Obviously, they do. For us, what we have to do is we have to listen to them. That is the first job, really, is to kind of listen to what they're saying, understand where they're at, and make sure that we're able to kind of wrap around them in a way that's productive, not just doing it for our own purpose, if that makes sense. Yes, of course, people bring stuff to the table. The way that we are trying to build our company is to have 5 stories at the center of it, as I was just sort of saying. So regardless of whether we're starting from the very, very beginning with you as a brand and we're working on your branding, that's one thing. But if you come to us, and you want to launch a new product, or you've got a campaign, or you're doing a recruitment campaign or something like that, there's no reason why the 5 stories can't be done on a slightly different scale to elevate your brand and get a clearer understanding of your brand for the purpose of that output. We'd always say to people, look, you're going to get the most value out of this if you kind of go from the beginning. It kind of just forms part of our briefing process in a way, in that we want to understand everything from the client via the 5 stories, and we will put everything out into the world via the 5 stories. So it kind of flex nicely to work into lots of different situations, is kind of the short answer. But we obviously want to take everyone on the full journey, because we've seen the results for it ourselves, and that's always comes a question. And quite honestly, a lot of the time, once we sort of show some examples of it happening before, people kind of go, oh, I get it now. Like, I can see where they were at, and now I can see where they are. And actually, I think I need that, because it's difficult to do. We've had to create this so that we can understand it ourselves. Branding is so abstract. This just creates context for it.
It really is. And I think that's another point to make as well, like brand, like what even is a brand? Like, when you really break it down, and the 5 stories really just helps businesses understand it better, and also build their brands better. And I think what really kind of turns the corner for people who are on the fence that we speak to about, working with us and going on that 5 stories journey, what really does kind of change their minds, I guess, is when we talk about, their customers and the kind of, hearts and minds that they want to win and connect with. And I think that's stories. The only way, getting your stories right and getting on the same page with the people that, you want to connect with, and you want the people that you want to listen and hear you and care about your business and as much as you do, because every single founder is just so passionate about what they're building, and no one else really cares as much as you do, really, not yet anyway. And storytelling in the 5 stories really does help them get closer to their customers, because we do that bit where we talk to them, we go out there and we actually, have conversations with them. And it's the way we do that as well. Like, we have a framework around the conversations that we have with them, and that really helps us find the insight, it really helps us understand them. And we pull that all into the 5 stories work that we do. And that tends to really kind of hit home with a lot of the businesses that we speak to.
In terms of how can people get in touch with you, and what's the best way to, find out more about what you guys do?
Absolutely, yeah. So obviously our website, which is makeus.care. There's a form on there and there's a phone number and all that good stuff. Equally, Amanda and I are obviously on LinkedIn. So yeah, connect and say hello.
And in terms of the sweet spot or the kind of customers that you work best with, could you tell us a bit more about your kind of ideal customers, or who you're trying to work with?
We work a lot with startup and scale up businesses, often have or are going through a kind of change in their business, whether that's, they realize they've got, a new round of investment and they need to they've known for a while that they need to take their branding and advertising to the sort of next level, or they've, as a kind of founding team or as a business, they need to change direction or the way in which they communicate a little bit. Equally, companies that are sort of launching new products, come off the back of a kind of Kickstarter or some sort of fundraising. We're there to challenge people and, really make a difference in their business. It's really anyone, that might be an enterprise business, that might be a large SME, shall we say, but it's people that are just willing to make a change and know they need to make a change as well, is where we have the most amount of impact.
You've changed my way of thinking so many times, and that was just one of them. So thank you again for your time, guys.
Thank you for having us.
From my side, it's been an absolute pleasure knowing you all these years and working with you sometimes, and also, just being inspired by the way you guys think. I've learned a lot, and meeting people through you, like Nikki, as well as a whole bunch of people that I've learned so much from, and things that you talk about. Sometimes I don't understand it at first, but then once I get my head around it, then I'm like, it takes me about 6 months. So, you guys have seen me through some low points and also some high points. And I'm really happy that you are our first guests for episode 1 of season 2. I hope we will have you soon. We wish you all the best on your journey. And thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much.
Thank you guys so much. Yes, I think it's the longest time I've spent chatting with you in a while.
I know. I'm so grateful for this time. And thank you. Yeah, thank you for having us. It's been awesome to chat to you.
See you soon.
Cheers.
Bye.
Hope you enjoyed this episode, and don't forget to listen to other episodes of Zero Calorie Marketing Podcast.
If you have a minute, do leave us a review on whichever platform you happen to be enjoying this episode.
We'd love to hear from our listeners, so drop us a message with guest suggestions, thoughts on the episodes, and even compliments at zcm@interestingcontent.co.uk.